Let me check real quick.
Call meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call. Roll call, Mr. Ortman.
Supervisor Moss. Here. Supervisor Brotherton.
Here.
Supervisor Angus.
Here.
Supervisor Johnson. Chairman Watson.
Here.
Commissioner Azarmi.
Here.
Commissioner Simons.
Present.
Commissioner Jones.
Present.
Commissioner Gordon.
Here.
Commissioner Coletta.
Here.
Commissioner Walker. Commissioner Posenel. Chairman Pluchet.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Number one on the item is the welcome and introductions by Mike Hendricks.
And they'll be very short since we're into the afternoon. I'd like to personally welcome everybody to this joint workshop of the Mohave County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Supervisors. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Hendricks. Like a number of you, I'm relatively new in my position, so we have something in common. I'd like to say that without a doubt, the Planning and Zoning Commission is one of the board's most valuable resources when it comes to development and our development community. And I believe you all know that. I greatly appreciate the commission members. You know, we have 10 selfless people who serve without compensation, and some of the issues that you deal with are incredibly complex. They're controversial, and I really take my hats off to you all stepping up, volunteering, and standing before the public to make the best recommendation you possibly can for Mohave County and our development community to the Board of Supervisors, and it's invaluable. I hope this joint workshop turns out to be very valuable and beneficial to the supervisors and commission alike, and I also have a wish that it becomes a tradition. And thank you all for suggesting that we move in this direction. I believe this interaction is a tremendous thing. It provides everybody with an opportunity to establish clear expectations and to engage in open discussion. It also allows an opportunity for the county to better serve our development community, and that's going to be a tremendous benefit. I believe what the county is doing with transparency is a wonderful thing, and I believe what the county is doing moving towards us being more developer friendly, open for business, helpful, partnering with our development community is also a wonderful thing, and will really reap the benefits when our economic development situation turns the corner. And I think we've got people, you people, and the Board of Supervisors in a unique position to sincerely take advantage of that and bring the county forward. And that's going to be a wonderful thing. With that said, all I'm going to do is step aside and let you all go to work. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. Chairman Flachet, do you want to make any comments at this time?
Well, I think the only thing that I'd like to say is kind of going back to the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and everybody understands what it means for good planning and to have a good general plan, because a good general plan is really a good roadmap for the kind of business that we want to bring to Mohave County and the industry that we want to bring to Mohave County. And I think it's the role of the Planning and Zoning Commission to not just sit here on the bench and make decisions, but we also need to investigate those people that have things coming before the Planning and Zoning Commission, make sure that wherever these things are going, that it's really it will work within that community, and that's what we strive to do.
Thank you. All right, second item on the agenda is the commission's role on land use matters, presented by Robert Taylor, Deputy County Manager, Attorney.
Thank you. I'll just briefly go through an outline of the role, the different areas that the Planning and Zoning Commission works in, the function it performs, and if at any time while I'm doing that, if you have some questions, please feel free to ask, or if you would like to generate some discussion among yourself, please feel free to do so. The Planning and Zoning Commission was established pursuant to ARS 11802 to serve as an advisory body to the Board of Supervisors in matters relating to land development within the county. Its purpose is to promote the health, safety, convenience, and general welfare of the community, and in matters relating to planning and zoning, changes in zoning, subdivision platting, and rules. Enforcement of rules and regulations applying to development of land within the county, and then implementing and developing a general plan, which serves as the roadmap for land development within the county. As an advisory body, the Planning and Zoning Commission performs both legislative and administrative actions. The distinction being legislative action is generally the development of new policy or the change of existing policy, whereas administrative action is the just the application or interpretation of previously existing policy. The two primary areas where the Commission is involved in legislative action relates to the development and changes to the general plan and the amendments to the zoning ordinance and dealing with requests for changes in zoning. With respect to the general plan, the ARS 11804 charges the Commission with the initial implementation of a general plan for recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors is the ultimate legislative body that makes the decisions. The general plan, the enabling statutes provide that the general plan will be developed in order to promote the general health, safety, welfare of the community. It's a fairly broad charge of responsibility. The ultimate responsibility is the board, but the Planning and Zoning Commission is the advisory body that gets involved in that process. There are certain things that are required under the general plan that are required to be elements of a general plan, and that's all spelled out in the statute. But there's also a broad charge to develop a plan that protects the environment, protects the resources, promotes the general welfare of the community, which would include things like encouraging the development of business and things like that, because that's related to the general welfare. There are frequently conflicting elements of the general plan. A protection of a resource may have, at least in a temporary nature, have a negative impact on the development of jobs and things like that. But that's what legislative action involves. It's the weighing and balancing of frequently conflicting values. Also, the Planning and Zoning Commission is involved in developing the zoning ordinance, and I believe we're going through a process with that right now to update the zoning ordinance, and also to conduct hearings that are statutorily required, public hearings whenever there's a request for a change in the zoning ordinance. To make recommendations, after those hearings, to make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, and the Board of Supervisors can again, they exercise the ultimate legislative decision. They can accept the Commission's recommendations, or they can accept it with additional conditions, and that's generally the two main areas of legislative action. The administrative action primarily involves review of subdivision plats and issuance of certain types of zoning use permits. A subdivision plat review is essentially an administrative function where the commission and eventually the board reviews an application for a subdivision to assure that there's sufficient infrastructure or assurances for infrastructure, that it's adequately served by roadways off-site and on-site, things like that. And there's not a lot of discretion if the elements that are set forth in the statute, it's 11.821, are met, then, basically the subdivision, there's not much discretion to refuse the issuance of a subdivision. That's or the approval of a subdivision plat. That is, sometimes the commission also considers legislative proposals in connection with a subdivision application, such as where there's a necessity for a rezoning. And that's, so there could be a blend of both legislative and administrative action involved in a subdivision plat review. The other areas where it's essentially an administrative act is in zoning use permit. You may recall the RV park application that was somewhat contested. The land division or the land development regulations require that an application for like an RV park provide certain amenities, roadways and stuff sufficient to serve the vehicles and things like that. Infrastructure, sewage, disposal facilities, things. The commission's role in reviewing that type of development is primarily administrative, unless there's a need for a change of zoning. If the RV park or any proposed development is consistent with the zoning, then there's not much discretion to withhold it, zoning use permit, if it meets the technical requirements under the zoning ordinance. Another area, some use permits could be considered legislative, such as where there's a zoning use permit and the commission, under our zoning ordinance, the commission and the board are given the authority to consider how it fits within the community and make conditions on the issuance of the permit, on the applicant complying with certain requirements to make the development fit within the community that it's proposed to be located within. And that's kind of a nutshell of the different areas that the commission is involved in. And it's necessary to understand that the commission is the advisory board. You follow the general plan. Your zoning decisions should be consistent with and based on the general plan, and make the decisions on whether or not the proposed, if it's a change in zoning, whether or not the proposed zoning complies with the elements of the general plan. And there's also the opportunity to make changes to the general plan, minor amendments dependent upon the size of the development or the type of the development, or major amendments, for larger projects or projects that are a departure from the traditional use of the area. So that's kind of a nutshell. If you would like to, if there are any questions, or if you would like to engage in some discussion.
Anybody have any? Crystal?
I do. Just throw it out there. I understand it now, but before I became a commissioner and really started getting into the planning and zoning and the board and stuff, I was changing a bunch of properties. Now I understand the concept of the layout of the general plan as the basis for the growth and what you're looking for. But take me outside of what I know now. Back to when I'm confused, oh my God, rip my hair out, want to kick the county, tell them they're, this is loopholes and fire rings, okay? When you have a general plan and you want to rezone something, okay, and you go in there to rezone, they hand you the packet, you fill it all out. You take it in there, oh, you have to change the general plan. You have to do an amendment to this. What are you talking about? Well, you have to do an amendment to this. Well, I don't understand. If I'm putting in for a zoning, and the zoning is meeting the criteria of most of the general plan, okay, but the general plan is a little bit off from exactly what I'm doing. Now I have to take and change the general plan, which no longer makes it a general plan. It makes me a localized area within the general plan. So for people like me who knew nothing at the time, now we're really irritated. We don't even want to deal with it because now we got 500 and something here for my zoning, now another 500 and something here for my general plan, and I haven't even got to all the stipulations that go with that zoning, the 6-foot fence, this, and oh my God, forget it. I don't want to put a business in here. So if I'm going to change my zoning, but the amendment general plan has to be slightly changed or a minor amendment, isn't there a way that when you approve the zoning for small projects like personal businesses, that the amendment for the general plan is attached to it so people that are trying to put in these small businesses that fit where they do out there in the community and fit everywhere, we don't rip our hair out and tell Mohave County to go away, kick dirt on it, we don't want to build here because there's too many fire lips, and oh my God, you're paying twice for something that's the same dang thing. You know, that's always confused me, even to today, even now that I understand, okay, the way it works and why it works and all this, I still pull my hair out every time I have to do a rezone because I know that I have to also do an amendment change, and another this, you know, when people are trying to kick off a business, if I only had to pay $825 in my zoning and amendment, small, minor amendment change to the general plan is going to go through, I'm going to go, woo, $825 versus, you know, let's see, $1325, oh, 10, 11, oh, 12 something, you know, right off the giddy up, and I have to go through 2 processes that are done on the same day anyway, and if one's not approved, the other one's not approved, and if this one is held up, then this one is, you know, it just kind of, even today when I look at it, that is the most common question I get from Golden Valley, and people putting in businesses that want to put in, well, you know, everything is right, and there's a business next to me, how come they got a business, but they're telling me something about a general plan? How can you touch a general plan and use it as your basis and you want to bring business, but not have the two linked in some way that when you change the zoning, if it fits in, let it change too instead of having 2 separate applications with 2 separate fees? It is so consumingly just confusing.
Well, we're statutorily required to follow the general plan. The zoning has to be consistent with the general plan. The general plan has elements not only relating to general goals and things like that, but it also has land use designations. And if you're you know, that relate to density or type of use and
Right, I
things like
understand
that. And if you change one of those elements that's imposed by the general plan, you have to adjust your general plan. You know, perhaps there is some more flexible way of doing both in the same process. But,
Because if I could, Mr. Chairman, I think that's what I hear Ms. Simmons saying is, just like we streamlined the septic underneath development services, so you have one inspector going out, is there a way to streamline the process that when you get your rezone, you automatically also get your general plan revisions, so you do go through the loops once as opposed to twice? I'm not sure if I'm following, but I think
Yeah,
that's
you
what
are
you're saying.
following it. They're 2 separate things. Let's say my general plan is light industrial or commercial, but I need to do a CMO instead of a CH2 or whatever. So because I have to do that, now I have to change, instead of my general plan, we're going to take that and we're going to change one little piece of property, and now it's localized out of that, you know, for that amendment, but I have 2 different applications, you have 2 different fees, you have 2 different, instead of saying, you know what, with this type of rezone, we do have to do a minor amendment, but here's this application. That way, instead of having 2 agendas thingies, you go, oh, this one goes hand in hand, this, the general plan fits, we have to change this, the zoning fits for this. You know what? You have a wonderful day. But I hear that a lot. I mean, I understand it now, but that is one thing I've always wanted to really look into, because I hear that question of the confusion. And even as great as the people are, Nicholas Hunt, Christine Ballard, all of them work so hard. You know, I mean, they do, to sit down with people, have meetings with people. That is the most common thing that I hear about Mohave County when people are trying to set up new businesses, is the confusion of the 2 of not understanding, like I did not understand at one time, that, and it's really discouraging.
well, perhaps Mr. Hunter, Ms. Ballard can explain the, you know, is there a way to streamline that through, you know, basically we're talking about the application process, the statutes. You know, if you change the general plan, you can do it simultaneously with the zoning request.
Yep,
but it has to be done, so.
right. Yeah, in deference to the chairmans, Mr. Watson and Mr. Flouché, and members of the board, and members of the commission, the general plan and the zoning ordinance are two different documents. And the statute treats them as two different documents. And so when we go forward to amend them, even if we're amending the general plan in order to facilitate a rezone, we still have to, Mr. Taylor's right, legally, all rezones have to comply with the general plan, so we have to amend the general plan first. When we go forward to do so, it's kind of all actions, all advertisements, et cetera, have to be separate. Also, the state statute requires us to get the applicant's concurrence on any action that we may do with their property. And so if we get a rezone application and they sign it, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll agree to a plan amendment, so we have to get signatures for both of those. There might be some things we can do with our application process. We might be able to get put in a disclaimer on our rezone applications that said that basically if you apply for a rezone that doesn't comply with the general plan, you're also giving us permission to amend the general plan on behalf of you for that particular property, the property falling within that particular description. It sounds like part of the issue is the fee. We can certainly discuss the fee. We can also, I think that it is confusing for the public, to think of the fact that the general plan sets the framework. It's the zoning ordinance that implements the general plan. We do have some diagrams in the office that we can attach to the applications, the rezone applications, and make just generally available to the public that do explain that fact that it's the general plan that actually rules, and it's the zoning ordinance that implements the general plan. I think because people are so much more affected by rezonings or zoning issues that it's very easy to think of it happening in the other way.
If I may.
Sure.
And I will confess that when I have questions in these areas, I ask wiser heads than mine. But it occurs to me what Ms. Simmons is saying is, when you fill out an application for one, why can't you fill out the application for the other or make them the same form? Because if you get your rezone and then after you get your rezone, you're informed, now you have to amend the general plan. If you're a small business with a loan,
It's the other way around.
okay, could be the other way around. If regardless, you've just now stretched out the time period that I can begin to go to work, and time is literally money when that interest clock is ticking and you're not bringing in revenue. So, I mean, it's anything.
May I answer that, Supervisor Moss? We do it at the same time currently, but there is certainly room to simplify it, and appreciate the comments from Commissioner Simons that, right now we do it at the same time, and there is always an item for the board, and there's an A and B. One, modifying the general plan, B is the rezone, but it goes hand to hand, and I think that's what you are suggesting, to simplify it and make it one action that approves both of them and just a longer action. However, there's a legal implication that Bob pointed out, that there is two different documents, two different statutes regulating the general plan and the zoning ordinance. So we make sure we have to cover all our legal bases, and we're going to look into that to simplify that process if we can.
Yeah. Well, I'm not really, I'm sorry.
Oh, pardon me, go ahead.
I'm not really concerned about the A and B on the agenda. I mean, you could put A, B, C, D on the agenda. We're going to be here for an hour all day, how long it takes. I think Ms. Simons is talking about from maybe the unsophisticated business person, a small business person's
Right.
perspective.
Right.
How do we get them into business faster? So the agenda isn't really the issue. How we couch it on the agenda is not the issue. I think the issue, from what I'm hearing, is probably maybe the application process.
Right.
So,
Let me clarify if I can, if that, 1 second. Like, when first time I did this, all I did was go in, oh, you need to rezone. Okay, I filled out all the rezone, followed all the rezone, I go in, turn in the rezone, then I get a call, it's like, oh, well, we need another paperwork for the plan amendment. I didn't see anything about a plan amendment because I didn't know how to look it up at that time to find out on the county site. Does the plan amendment meet it? Does the general? I don't even know. Duh. So my thing could not hit it. which I've learned since then. And like I said, I had wonderful people at the county who helped educate me, and now that I'm on the board, I'm being more educated. But as a common consumer of trying to do this, if that rezone paperwork at the top said amendment plan and zoning request, you may need to change the general plan amendment, please, or, see them before you leave, fill out the general plan at the top, which would be one form at the top, the zoning paperwork, you need this for the general plan, this for the zoning. I can come in, turn it in, and pay $850 instead of $1,200 for two, and be totally confused with two sets of paperwork, you know what I mean? It just would simplify, and I think that when it comes to that, you would find out that people would not be as frustrated, not wanting to bring business, not just forgetting the project in the middle, dropping the ball, that kind of thing, just for giving up, because I almost did at one point in time. And like I said, but it was very important for me to do it and learn, but it's quite the process. And even today, I still learn more about it. But I just think for the growth of this county, that is the biggest thing I hear out there.
Thank you for your input, Crystal.
I have a comment.
Supervisor Brotherton.
Okay, I understand exactly what you're talking about. I spent 2 years in changing a plan, general plan. It was a major change. It was in the city of Kingman, not with the county, but the procedure is pretty much the same. You have to go and apply for the change in the general plan. Then you have to wait a period of time before you can come back in and resubmit that. That has absolutely nothing to do with your zoning, because you can get the plan changed, but you still have to go through the whole procedure for the change in zoning. And it is almost to the point that it's just impossible. And I kept saying to the city, you call this a general plan? It's a plan, not the Bible. They were not going to change it, no matter what. These things really get under my skin, because this was for a business. It was for the, growth and economy for the city of Kingman. Same would be for Mohave County. So I'm thinking that maybe special attention should be paid to what we're going to do with that general plan. We need to really pay close attention to what we're doing and what our overlays are and everything in that general plan before we adopt it.
May I answer that, Mr. Chairman? I appreciate the comment, Supervisor Brotherton. The general plan amendments, there are two types of amendments, a minor amendment and a major amendment. And the major amendment is time-consuming. It takes a year. Actually, it has to be done in the same calendar year, and it's very complex. And I think later on we have on the agenda discussing the general plan review. And what I was going to suggest, that this is an important item that that we put in there, and we set the limits. What is a minor amendment? What is a major amendment? There is some limits on it, the size of property and so forth, and we can set that limit pretty high. And I think that that would probably solve the issue to simplify. And then going back to the minor amendments, I think that's what Commissioner Simon is talking about. That can be done concurrently with the zoning. And I think what Supervisor Moss suggested, I take the suggestion, it's absolutely right, that have probably the same application process and process it the same way, because the public is not knowledgeable. So we don't try to educate them, just get the business done for them, and do it on the same application form. However, we still have to change both the general plan and the zoning ordinance, but it's just going to be one application. And we can look at the fees, of course, because that's another issue, that see if we can lower some of the fees. We have to advertise both of them, and that's what the fees come from mainly, but we certainly will look at it.
And Mr. Hunt, I understand that the minor and the major is determined by the amount of property. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
How much
It's
property for the minor?
really large right now, the way we set it, and I forgot the number, maybe Chris or John can correct me, but it's talking about 1,000 acres or something, or several
several
thousand acres.
square
That's when it
miles.
goes into the major.
Oh, I see that
amendment.
much.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
I
it's
see.
it's a large, but we can raise it even higher if
Very
that's
good.
what the board wishes. And I was planning to talk about this a little more on the general plan review process later on the
Very good.
agenda.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and move on to item number 3, discussion of the commission's role in supporting economic development. And I would like to take this moment to apologize to a number of our folks in the economic development circle, Lisa McCabe, folks that we have here in our county, Bennett Bradley, and some of the other folks for not being part of this discussion. So I bear the brunt of that lack. Are they in the back? Come on to the front. Thank you. You're much closer now.
Yeah. Is that a good thing?
You're in the blast radius
Hey,
now.
Lisa, if you'll stand up for a minute, I'll introduce you. Lisa McCabe, and she's with the Bullhead,
Bullhead Regional Economic Development Authority, BREDA.
Frida, there you go. And Bennett Bradley with our own Economic Development Department here in Mohave County. So with that, we can start this discussion of the Commission's role in supporting economic development. Who would like to kick that off? Steve?
I'll start because I'm at the far end.
There you go.
I'm just going to announce my philosophy, and there's really two components to it. As a sports supervisor, when I go through the agenda, the first thing I look to on these issues is how the commission voted. And fortunately, your votes are pretty consistent, that you're in you have consensus to what should happen. But that's the first step I take in making a decision, because absent something horrific, there's no way I'm going to go against your recommendation, personally speaking. You guys are the experts, you're working hard, you're digging into things, and I'd have to have a good reason to go contrary to that. Which I haven't had yet. My second thing is, my personal viewpoint is that we need to be very pro-growth, pro-business, pro-development, and I hope that you have that same philosophy. I believe the people I appointed to the board have that philosophy, at least I hope so. Mehdi can tell me if I'm wrong. Yeah, there you go. And we need business in this area. And going back to the idea of the rezones and general plans and whatnot, if someone wants to bring IBM to Mohave County, they can pack it in my backyard and I don't care. So just bring it.
Joy. Supervisor Brotherton, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't.
The only comment that I'll make is much similar as Supervisor Moss's. Many times, yours is the first notification we get on a project, and certainly take to heart what your recommendations or questions are. And to the point where when you do make a decision, and one in which I kind of have questions about from time to time, I really enjoy going out to those locations, kicking the dirt, taking a look around, and getting an understanding of the situation. But I really look at your input as probably the first direction. Supervisor Angus?
I have nothing further to add. Just ditto the remarks.
Well, we tried to do a really good job. We tried to make sure, and certainly take into consideration the economic value, the neighborhoods, and especially when we have a lot of speakers. And from time to time, we have a lot of resistance on certain things, but we really take that into consideration. We don't want to put something in somebody's backyard that's just totally offensive, and we try to make sure that heavy industry is where heavy industry should be, and same goes with from office buildings to maybe a little bit heavier zoning. But we think that the more we can consolidate things in the county, it makes everybody's job a lot smoother, easier, and When it comes to the general plan, I mean, there were several of us that were involved in it. I went to 2 or 3 of the meetings, but I think when it comes to the general plan, I think Mr. Azami is probably up on that the very most, and because he attended all, and he was all the way in there through a lot of the recommendations. So just thinking forward, we appreciate the fact that you guys only send some things back once in a while, but usually our first decision is usually the best decision. So
Yep.
anyway, I'll end it there.
Thank you, Chairman Flachet. Let's go ahead and continue around the table.
Thank you.
Are you prepared to speak, Mitty?
I'm ready, but
Are you at a loss for words?
This speaker is not working.
Never at a loss.
Let's try. Good afternoon, Chairman Watson, Vice Chair Angus, and supervisors and staff members. Thank you for the opportunity to have a meeting with you. I've been here in this county for 24, 25 years, and I've seen where we were and where we are right now. I would like to appreciate and recognize the hard work of the staff, especially in the past 5 years, that they used the slow time to really try to update and be ready for the next wave of the boom that we're going to have. Their vision, I think, is to be more customer friendly, customer service. I think that they came a long way of trying to make it so easy and streamline the process. And I can, as a person who was on the other side of the table 20-some years ago, I can assure you that we came a long way. It's a very exciting time for the Mohave County right now, especially with the new Board of Supervisors. We have 5 dynamic supervisors that are working hard. They can talk to each other. They can really make their promises and their election promises come through, and we can see the result of it in the past 8 months or so. Your report card is showing that. As far as the commission, I think being on the commission for several years, this is the best team that we have so far. They are coming from the real estate background, from engineering background and business. And, that would be something that, I believe you need to have for, a dynamic general plan or, a commission that you would need to have. In terms of relation with the staff and information going back and forth, it is very easy to deal with the staff, and especially, with the new county administrator, directors that we have. And I think that that makes it so easy for the commission to be able to be unanimous on the decisions, especially with, any decision that we are kind of not sure, we basically ask Bob Taylor, to help us with it. And everything is going, I believe, very smooth. One thing that I'd like to add to Mr. Taylor's discussion and review that he did for us, and as we all know, general plan is a dynamic instrument, and we have to be very careful with those changes as it goes forward. And I think that is one of the very important aspects of this review that needs to be done, because things changes so fast, and we need to make sure that we are up to date. Year 2000 was different than 2005. 2005, we were in the halfway in a boom, and everybody anticipated that things are going to go for ever and ever, and even it was reflected on the general plan that way. Well, we saw the crash of 2007, and after that, so 2010 obviously took those ideas and tried to kind of change that to some extent. And of course, the data that is in 2000 is not applicable in 2010. And we can go on, and there are a lot of information. I thought that maybe the supervisors, they like to take a look at what we've done, as Carl Flachet mentioned, about things. So I just went over the weekend and I made some of our red lines and things like that have been notes. I just got to about 53 pages of it, so I have copies for you if you're interested to have it. But regardless, there are very important changes that is going on between 2005 to 2010 and 2010 and 2015. One thing that I think we need to elaborate on is the impact of the Proposition 207. It is very important for the Planning and Zoning Commission and of course Board of Supervisors to understand the legality of this 207, because if we, for whatever the reason, outside of our jurisdiction decide to turn a project down, for whatever the reason, can be water or anything that is not, we are going to devalue the property, and by doing that, we are liable. So it's very important for the commission and also, for the county attorney to be able to be careful with, what we decide, because, we have to be very careful with the 207. So those are the things that, I think we need to incorporate in our decisions. In my opinion, and I've said it in many, many occasions, that, we have a land use ordinance. That is our Bible. If the item falls within that guidelines of the land use ordinance, it's easy. Pass, approve it for the Board of Supervisor Commission. We cannot go outside of that field and play, because that is a dangerous place for us to be. But again, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I just want to let you know that what you've done today was a big step toward the general plan, which is basically letting engineers handle septic systems, and in the future you're going to have subdivisions or any other businesses that are coming to the county. Their plan and their system would be reviewed in-house by the county, which is you're in a way not 100%, but I think a good percentage. You're taking ADEQ out of our lives, and that is going to be very important. Just personally telling you, just on the sewer system and the wastewater system, traditionally it takes about 6 to 8 months. And as a developer, we pour the money into the state, making 2 or 3 trips to Phoenix to basically get the approval. Well, that money now is going to come to the county. You're streamlined it, and you're going to save, applicants and developers like myself or others, about maybe 4, 5, 6 months of time, plus a lot of money and travel. So I think that, your steps, the steps that you have taken already is in the right direction, and I hope that, we can continue building on that. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Member Armani.
If I could say something, Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Moss.
He mentioned having materials. I think I'd really like a copy of whatever materials he has.
Certainly. If you'll share that with the board, we'd appreciate it. I think he came prepared.
You killed the tree.
In my experience, he usually is.
Thank you.
And that's why we have recycling.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, pink.
Thank you very much, Betty. Crystal, what do you see as the Commission's role in supporting economic development?
I stole that from her microphone. I just want to explain to the paperwork that you have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry
Go
about that. What you see in front of you is basically, my notes during the meetings as we were, dissecting, the 2005 general plan and some of the reasons, of the changes and all that. It's not the whole thing. It is just some samples of it, just for your information. Sorry about that.
Not a problem. As I had said in the meeting today, I remember that day pretty well. There was I had a pretty big disappointment when much of the conservation efforts in the general plan were disregarded at that point. So just a comment I wanted to make. But Crystal.
I really don't have anything to add. I mean, I'll reserve that for later, so I usually always do. But staff, chairperson, supervisors, commission, I've been lucky. I've actually been fortunate to learn as much as I have in just over a year that I've been on the board. I hope to be on the commission's board a lot longer and continue to learn. But one thing while I'm here that I just will probably always do is look from an outside point of view, because I was a consumer, I am a consumer, But now that I've been educated as far as the board, I still need to know what these people are going through and the questions that they ask to help them and help it become easier for our job to make things happen in growth.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Chairman Watson, how are you?
Fine, sir.
I'd like to go back to what Mehdi was talking about on this ADEQ thing. I've seen interest rates in the last 6 weeks jump 1.5 points on homes. I'm in the real estate business, as all of you know. Time is money, and to do this ADEQ thing, and if we can save 6 months, you may save a developer one heck of a lot of money. And someone like Maddie, who is a developer and does a lot of homes and is getting ready to do some more homes in our area, construction costs are very expensive. And to save him time, because interest rates are going to continue to climb, and if it saves him 1 point over 6 months, that's a lot of money. And I think that was very fortunate that you guys did that, and I respect you for it. Thank you. And I want to say one thing about the staff. They're all fantastic. If you have a question, I don't care how dumb it is, they'll give you a sound answer and not laugh at you. For that, I'm thankful.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Did you want to announce anything?
I can.
If you would, let's go ahead and make it public. Is it
No, sir.
for publication or
I don't
not?
think so.
Okay, then,
Just for the chairman's information.
thank you. Thank you. I didn't know whether it was me. Mr. Gordon, would you like to?
Yeah, Chairman Watson, supervisors, staff, commissioners, I'm honored to be here. It's still kind of getting my feet wet on the commission. I've been in Mohave County for about 12 years now in the land development planning realm. So I'm honored to be here learning and becoming a part of this whole process on a larger stage with all of you. I think economic development is vitally important, and it's something that's going to happen. And I think Mohave County has a huge, bright future ahead of itself. For economic growth, as time goes on here, and it's been, I guess I've been happy to see the position that we're in with the Board of Supervisors and the commissioners that we have, the staff, and the whole process that's in place. And I think what we're talking about today, streamlining it, doing what we can to work together to continue to improve that process is a great thing. And again, I just look forward to being part of this process and hope that we can help encourage economic growth in a positive and correct manner as time goes forward.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Mr. Coletta.
Chairman Watson and the Board of Supervisors, I just want to concur with what my fellow commissioners indicated, that we're trying to improve the zoning and the development in the county. I've been a property owner here for 17 years, and I've been involved with county work for about 7 years directly. So I know where it's going in, and it's going in a good direction. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And back in our audience, I'll have someone panned up. Lisa, would you like to make comments to?
Oh, sure.
I noticed you really didn't have much to say about this yesterday. So.
Yeah, well, it was Saturday, but yeah.
Saturday.
Good afternoon, Chairman Watson and Board of Supervisors and staff. I'm Lisa McCabe, President of the Bullhead Regional Economic Development Authority. Thank you for allowing us to participate in this workshop. Economic development and planning and zoning are intertwined with each other. We support each other. Commissioner Jones, Commissioner Mehdi, Arzami, sorry, are both on my board. That's how much they believe that economic development and planning and zoning are intertwined. I also participated in the general plan update as part of the technical advisory committee, and it was an eye-opening process. I think we all have the same goal in that we need to facilitate, streamline, make easier the processes with still protecting the overall goal of the general plan in protecting the county. And that's all. I just wanted to make sure that the open communication, two-way communication remains there between the economic development professionals throughout the county and the planning and zoning and the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McKay. Bennett Brantley, would you like to make a comment?
Just to, say basically the same stuff that, like what you guys did today, what the board did in regards to streamlining the process for the permits with the septic tank. We worked on projects where we've had to go back and forth between two separate departments within our agency, and, it just didn't make sense. So, that's a step. To continue to do that is just, I think, detrimental to the businesses. By all means, feel free. I know a lot of times the board, you guys, I don't really hear from you, but if there's a project that you have any questions about, give our office a call, and I'll be more than happy to go over maybe potential impacts of that property, how they might affect in regards to job growth, things like that, that you guys can take when you're making a decision, for your vote. The other thing that I think that, as a county, we might want to discuss is in regards to some local incentives. If there's some possibilities to looking into that. We do have some state incentives, but a lot of times, we're fighting against other counties within Arizona. And so if we can offer something that they don't have, that will put us a step ahead when it comes to some of these projects that we're seeing come across my desk. I think zoning is going to be very important. I've got a large project right now that I've been working on for a little over 2 months. And when you go out and you look at, what we have to offer, a lot of times the infrastructure isn't where it needs to be. The roads aren't where they need to be. So you've got and the zoning isn't what it needs to be. So it's finding that certain location that fits all these parameters and aligning it so that way we can become the site of their choice. And so there's going to be projects where we're going to be bringing forth, assuming we can find the appropriate property, where we're going to be looking to do some rezones. So it is very important. So infrastructure, incentives, zoning, workforce. Workforce is a major thing as well that is above and beyond the zoning that I think is going to have to be looked at when it comes to not only education, but where we're going to get these workers when we land these projects that are out in the county and bringing the workforce together from all the different communities to make it happen. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Moss.
I wanted to, by the way, I've met with Bennett a couple times, and he's a very bright, very hardworking person, and I think you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
I wanted to throw that out there. But it occurs to me that based upon conversations I've had, not with you necessarily, maybe you too, but the people, that we really should be comparing our commercial property tax rates as compared to our competitors for California jobs. So we have a better rate or equivalent rate to California, but that's not the test. The test is where they're going to land. So how do we compare to Utah and other places, other Arizona counties, Colorado, places like that may be competing for those businesses which want to very sensibly flee California. And so I was hoping I could drop a project on Bennett's desk, though I think it would take Mike to tell him to do this, is to compare our commercial property tax rates with these competing counties and states. So it gives the board an idea of where we stand on a competitive basis. Because really the issue is jobs. If we get the jobs in, we'll get the property taxes on their homes and the sales tax and all the other things that come in with it. And so I'd like to have a bit more information in that direction. The second thing, and when I was looking through some of the materials you provided me, We had a lot of our amenities in industrial parks and roadways and railways and all these airports and whatnot scattered about. But if I was a young owner of a small company in California, the first things out of my wife's mouth would be, how are the schools? And so if we had a bit more information about our schools, because I really think our schools do very well, more so than we suspect. Mohave Valley Elementary District is an A-rated district. Lake Havasu is a B-rated district. I mean, we do have some really decent elementary schools, and maybe we should figure out a way to incorporate that into our information, because it's one of the, we don't get a lot of, it's one of the things that we do very well, I think, but we don't get a lot of credit for it. So maybe we should broadcast that out a little bit more.
Thanks, Supervisor Moss.
I agree with that. And we could incorporate a lot of that on our marketing. If you do go to our website, we have a live and play section, and we hit on housing and we hit on schools. We even have teachers' numbers. I try to update those on a yearly basis. So I'll send you some of the stuff we do have. You take a look at it, and then we can
I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised by Lake Havasu and Mohave Valleys, and I'm sure Kingman's, because I think I read an article about your Kingman district doing very well too in their ratings. So we are better than average across the state when it comes to our elementary schools.
Yeah, we should promote that.
Yeah.
I'd like to just take this time while Bennett's up here to kind of point out what our Economic Development Department, Bennett and Travis Linkenfelter, did with an industry that came in about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And in order for the Stetson Winery folks to secure everything that they needed, our Economic Development Department pretty much tracked it all the way through all the application process. And having those people help track it and help provide information and help, give that guidance, it was a great service. And we were thanked to no end by the owner of the winery, Don and Joe Stetson, and also their project developer, mentioned that doing business in Mohave County this way was one of the best experiences that he had ever had in the building industry.
That's wonderful.
Mr. Hunt.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for saying that, and I just wanted to add to this. It's a real pleasure was a pleasure working with Travis Lingenfelter and also with Bennett, and thanks to Mike's vision, we are partnering instead of being regulators. We are partners, and combining it used to be two departments. Now we are together with Bennett actually, but when somebody comes in, Topak Marina was a really good point, and Travis just did a wonderful job bringing that project in, and our job was to make it happen, make it easy to happen and go through. So we had one point of contact for them, and they didn't have to go around talking with different people and pulling different permit zoning and building and public works and flood control. It's all one contact, and that tremendously helped, and that's what we plan to do in the future, talking with Bennett, that we are partners. It makes my job so much more enjoyable because, I come from the private industry. I worked all my life before I came to the county as a private consultant, and I always looked at governments as regulators. And I've been here for 13 years, and thanks to Mike, he set me straight pretty early, but I'm still learning that I wonder that how much regulator should we be? If somebody comes from the outside, and how much problem solver. And then, so I fully understand, and our department fully understands we 100% problem solvers. There's no fine line anywhere. And so I just wanted to add that this arrangement that we're working very close together, and economic development is like an advocate for the project, and our department is making things to happen with the permitting and everything else, and it's been working good, several projects, and that's what we plan to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Any?
I do have a question, and I'm not suggesting this. I'm treating this moment as more like a brainstorming session right now, but I believe that the unincorporated areas of Mohave County doesn't have any sort of bed tax. Have we looked at something like that as maybe being a funding source for BREDA and Mohave County Economic Development Authority and the Lake Havasu entities?
Not that I'm aware of.
I just throw that out there as, why not try to create a funding source for economic development? as a potential idea. I'm not even, don't get excited, I'm not saying I'm voting for it.
We're here to talk.
We're discussing, because this isn't throwing something on the table, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Certainly. Mr. Arzami.
One of the things that I've noticed, it's been discussed about, the industrial and, bringing, employment and all that. But I hope that we don't lose the sight of tourism and also retirement, because, right now with the problems of the, California, you're going to see another, wave of retirees that are looking for an alternative location. Traditionally, they're the richest class of the United States, and that's why we have so many medical facilities available in this area. So I think that it's very important to make sure, as Supervisor Moss indicated about the schools, which are going to be for the employees as well as retirees, we need to also broadcast about our medical facilities available in the Tri-City area. We have 3 cities that are culturally totally different from each other. We have Havasu, which is a resort community right now, and we've seen an influx of high-end, homes going in there. We have Kingman area that, we have the tourism, mostly from all over the world, Europe and all that. They come here and they enjoy. And I heard that, I guess this year or next year, there's going to be a convention of some sort here. And then in, obviously, Bullhead City area, we have the alternative location to Las Vegas for Californians and those who can, come to the river and lake and all that. And I think that, that's very important to make sure that we recognize that, because if you look at the demographic data, you'll see that, the industry is a small portion, but at the same time, retirees are the largest group that are basically coming over to our area. So it's very important to make sure that somehow we would be able to, because they're the most trouble-free, industry that we have, because they come here, they need service, and that's where the employment continue to go up. So I just want to make sure that I bring up that issue.
Yeah, just an added point, Mr. Chairman. There's 10,000 people retiring every day.
Right.
And a lot of them want to get out of the snow permanently.
A lot of them want to get out of the snow, a lot of them want to get out of California.
That's right. So that's a big number.
Certainly is, certainly is.
One of the industry sectors was healthcare that was called out in our report that was done in 2010. We had healthcare, arts and entertainment, distribution, logistics, manufacturing, and what was the other one? Energy. So those were the 5 targeted industries that we were looking to market to. And like you said, each community has different aspects of that. And so that 2010 report points out everything that you just mentioned, that this community is very receptive to this industry. And so you really don't want to recreate the wheel. You want to go after what that community can bring. So you're correct.
Certainly will.
Next year, the
Mr.
county's
Jones.
150 years old. Why don't we start catering on that?
150? Actually, we've made a change to that. We've got a new digital image. Is that what you're making reference to?
I'm making reference to the seal of Mohave County, 1864.
Right.
150 years will be next year.
Next year? Yeah. All right, we ready to move off to current and emerging issues in planning and zoning? Nick, you want to start off?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may start out with that, there are several issues, and I also let Chris talk because there are quite a few changes in the legislature and new laws, and I don't know how much time you want to spend on it, but maybe just touch on a few things. But I just want to start out that we have started on our own, and before I start, I want to thank all the support for the Commission and Chairman Flouchet and Vice Chair Arzami, and also to the board. But we started out on our department level, and we attacked this in 3 different fronts. First, and we had several meetings and having meetings with our managers and supervisors. We look at our regulations and look at the most simple interpretation and don't complicate things. And so we write up memos of understanding, and then that's the interpretation, and then we move on. The second, where we can simplify things, we make department policies and procedures, and so expedite, facilitate our process by simplifying our procedures. And then the last one, we going to the commission and the board constantly for amendments, mainly on the zoning ordinance, but the others too. And we just started a process. Again, thank you for the commission. They stepped up to the plate that we started a review process of our zoning ordinance and kind of revamped the whole thing instead of coming in piecemeal. And the commission appointed a committee, a 4-member committee, and Mehdi is the chairman of the committee, and I think he can attest to it that we came prepared. We have a lot of items that we recommend for changing and simplifying, and that's on our mind more than anything. So we try to do in-house as much as possible, and we call it regulatory reform for the county. But there are also quite a few law changes that happened recently that actually make things a little more complicated. But if Chris, you don't mind, maybe she can update us on the changes on the statutes.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, there have been several changes to statute, and probably the one that affected us most was Senate Bill 1598, which was actually adopted by the 2012 legislature, 2012 legislature. 11 legislature? Was it 11? 11.
Yeah, it was the 11, but it went into effect in 2012.
Thank you. It's why you always keep your attorney with you. He has the dates right. And that one affected in as much as that it brought a lot of the licensing timeframes that the state has been dealing with to local governments and sent us all scrambling. It was kind of, I think, a very difficult process, but I think a good process for us all. One of the issues that was included in 1598 that was difficult for us, still is difficult for us to address, and hopefully there's a statewide solution being worked on. Hopefully we'll come to some conclusion there, and that was that the rock products group prevailed to require in our general plan basically a aggregate element, and that we were to identify locations of prime aggregate and protect those as part of our general plan. The difficulty came in for the counties was they identified a set of state maps that don't exist apparently. So our only viable resource for information is non-existent. And we've been trying to work with them as well as work with the state to resolve that issue so we can actually follow through on the legislature's instruction. The other issue that kind of raised its ugly head as a part of protecting aggregate rights, what if those aggregate rights are sitting underneath Nick's new planned community? Whose rights prevail? Do the subsurface rights that belong, that are associated with the aggregate prevail, or does Nick's right to build houses prevail? And that's something we're just going to have to work through as part of our planning process. It does complicate the issue in some respects. One of the positive things I actually think, although I have to admit it was rather painful to go through, one of the positive aspects was the requirement to set licensing timeframes for all of our permits. We did that. They were done. They're posted on the website. And I think in the end, although it was a painful process to go through, I think it was a very positive process. Now everybody knows, you know, if you bring a permit into or you bring your permit application into Mohave County, everybody knows the maximum length of time it should take to process that amendment, that permit. It also limits our, occasionally, hopefully it never happened too often, but occasionally we get somebody caught in a loop where, you know, they'd submit an application to us, we'd write a correction notice, they'd submit the corrections back, we'd write another correction notice. The new laws pretty well limit us to one iteration, so we get one bite at the apple. We have to do it right. And I think also that's a positive note to keep our applications from getting into that cycle. There's some other issues with inspections, et cetera. Most of those actually don't apply to what Development Services does, in as much as most of our inspections are either requested by the applicant or a part of what ends up being a criminal investigation. I might say that there was a new bill, House Bill 2443, that amended all of that and said, it doesn't apply to residential property. That's difficult to do, to tell somebody on the website, we're going to be committed. This is our commitment. We're going to be doing processing your residential permit within so many days, and then turn back and say, just because the legislature said we didn't have to do it that way, we're not going to. You know, my feeling is we should leave those licensing timeframes up, and to the extent that we possibly humanly can, we should stick to them. The penalties are gone for residential property. That doesn't, to me, remove our commitment. Kind of some of the other issues I'd like to bring up too that we're going to be grappling with as we get into you know, looking at some of our regulations, and as Nick pointed out, the regulatory reform effort. And one is is facilitating economic development, knowing that economic development is very important to the board and to the commission. It's another thing quite to make it happen on the ground and to keep from getting becoming a problem in that process. As Bennett pointed out, you know, all these things have to come together. Well, when the actual physical infrastructure comes together, which Bennett will tell you was rare, we shouldn't have a general plan designation on top of that property that keeps it from ever being used as economic development, or a rezone on there that's difficult to change, or preferably a rezone that facilitates the best development. One of the issues too that staff has been grappling with that we are going to be searching for a solution is what we call agribusiness. And I'll credit John Montgomery with that term. And that's, we're seeing a lot of agricultural pursuits that can't make it as agricultural pursuits. They're just, you know, just the whole idea of just having, you know, production on the farm and then selling that production to a wholesaler. There's just not enough money into it. So they're starting to do agribusinesses, and we're seeing several of those in the county. Some of them are more traditional. I grow berries, I want to be able to sell jam. Others are not. Others are kind of new to us. I'm raising alpacas, so I want to sell socks made of alpaca yarn. Our latest one that we've seen a lot lately, I'm growing wine. I have a vineyard, I'm growing grapes. I want to have a winery. And as part of my winery, I want to be able to have parties and events. Our ordinance doesn't accommodate these things very well. As far as, you know, having a commercial side and having an agricultural side are two totally different things, and there the twain shall meet. Also, another item that Bennett mentioned that we want to be able to look at as we take a look at our regulations is accommodating an aging population. Mohave County was mature in 2000. We're more mature now, and with that brings issues for health care, housing, and transportation. Last but not least, our kind of planning and zonings. I guess this is the cross we bear, no matter, you know, how long we've been in the business. It's always the cross we bear, is how do you balance the rights? Everybody has property rights. How do you balance, you know, the people who live next door versus the person who wants to develop their property? You know, the rights of the neighborhood versus the rights of the developer. Those are always difficult issues to deal with.
Thank you, Ms. Ballard. Anybody have anything they might want to add to?
Mr. Chairman, as a commissioner, I'd like to know if Board of Supervisors can tell us, what we can do to help you better or serve you better.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the whole question.
I said, as the group of commissioners, I'd like to know your evaluation on our performance and see if there is, what can we do to serve you better.
I've given that some thought. And I think from the avenue of which you're coming from and the advisory role that you perform, I think you've done an exemplary job over the past 4.5 years that I've been here. And if you take into the changes that have occurred in development services to become more proactive in helping people, I think the deciding factor was the attitude change from, well, this is the reason why you can't do that, to the attitude change of, well, this is how we're going to make it work. And I think once the Planning and Zoning Commission got that flavor from the board, that the dynamics changed quite a great deal. So from my standpoint, I think you folks are doing one heck of a darn good job. As far as making changes, I couldn't recommend any specific change at the moment other than continue to ask questions about the process. And if we can solve problems in the process, then maybe we can start solving problems for the people that are coming to us. Anybody else have anything to add?
No, I think you summed it up exactly right, Mr. Chairman. You guys are doing a great job, and we just, I think you're just, as an advisory board, you guys are wonderful. You men, ladies, excuse me, are absolutely wonderful. I think it's most of the burden is on our end when it comes to figuring out how to be more efficient, more effective, more streamlined. I really do like the new worldview that Community Development Services has, Public Works has. We're partners, we're problem solvers. We're not here to tell you no. We're here to get it done for you. We need to grow, and I think that you're a very good and have been a very effective component of that puzzle.
I have a comment.
Supervisor Brotherton.
And I just want you to know, too, Crystal, as one of my commissioners, I know Jack already knows this. I've had the opportunity to talk with him, and all of you for that matter. I would like for you to know if there's ever a question, or if I can ever be of any help, any assistance, if you want to just pick my brain, sometimes it's slim pickings, but I'd be more than happy to meet with you, talk with you, and see if there's anything that I can do to make your job a little easier, and perhaps mine too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that probably goes for the entire board. I can't think of a board person that would not take your questions or your concerns. Are we ready to move on to recent changes?
Supervisor Watson, I believe Chris covered the most troublesome recent changes in the statutory structure with the discussion of Senate Bill 1598. That's known as the Regulatory Bill of Rights.
Right.
That raises some issues about establishing timeframes, advising the public applicants, things like that, of the policies that will be followed, the timeframes that will be followed. There's still a lot of concern among the county attorneys that deal with these issues and the planning agencies across the state as to whether or not that could be interpreted to apply to zoning regulations and things like, is it going to impose a timeframe within which you have to make a zoning decision and you can't request additional information, things like that. Generally it was treated, and I think it was concerned, or its primary concern was to impose, that type of timeframe, guidelines and notification guidelines and the appeal to the Board of Supervisors guidelines to impose those sort of conditions on licensing and permits, generally an administrative process. There is still some concern, though, that that could be interpreted to apply to the legislative process. And as you know, with the legislative process, there's a lot of there's a broader range of elements to consider, and sometimes you need more time. You need to request additional information, and it goes through the commission, a zoning issue, and then it comes to the board. There could be additional questions. So, there's some concern, and I think that there will be an effort to prevent that legislative. It's called Regulatory Bill of Rights, from being imposed on legislative action. That there's a hope that it will apply to administrative action. Another area, that's of concern, and I would hope to see some effort to address this in a way that would protect the county. The part of that bill that requires the county to develop policies and procedures designed to protect the aggregate business. It requires the general elements in the general plan, policies and procedures to protect aggregate business against incompatible uses by adjoining landowners. I can see Prop 207 issues arise from that process. If you're concerned about protecting a potential aggregate supply against a neighbor's proposed use of his or her property, that's some issues there. These are all things that I recently attended via telephone a conference with Chris and the planning directors across the state. So that's something that is of great concern. There have been within that time frame, there's been some positive things passed. One is the board has more authority now to expect or to, by unanimous decision, to establish a water requirement for subdivisions. As you know, we're not in an active management area, so there's not much regulation on development's use of water. But in 2011, a statute was passed that enables the Board of Supervisors, by unanimous vote, to amend its subdivision regulations to require a proposed developer to show from the Department of Water Resources that it has an adequate supply, or to show from a licensed water company or a municipality that it has an adequate supply and will serve that proposed development. We haven't enacted it, but that's an authority that you have. You would have to do it by an amendment to the subdivision ordinance. There's a recent bill that passed that clarifies that marijuana growing operation is not an exempt agricultural use. There's a general provision under the state statute that if 5 or more contiguous acres is used as an agricultural pursuit, that the zoning regulations don't apply to it. But there was some concern that that would prohibit the county from regulating via zoning regulations the medical marijuana cultivation. But that's a House bill that has been passed that clarifies that that's not the case now. So those are, I guess, that's some positive things in addition to the challenges imposed by the aggregate protection and the Regulatory Bill of Rights.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. At this point, do we have anything to add on this issue? Recent changes, planning statutes? Nick, anything? Christine? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and move on then to the discussion of the general plan update from Nick Hunt.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. If I may just spend a minute to go over the general plan, just generally what it is. Arizona Revised Statutes 11805 establishes the general plan as the official guide for development of the area in jurisdiction. That's what the general plan is. A lot of people misunderstand this is not a regulation. This is a guide, coordinate harmonious development within the county. It's a guide. And also the statutes 11804 establishes that the Planning Zoning Commission is instrumental in formulating the general plan. So the statutes require, 11805 requires that the county re-adopt the general plan every 10 years. That's in a nutshell. And so the last adoption was in 2010. So according to the statutes, the county would not be required to re-adopt a new general plan or review or do anything until 2020. However, a board can order our staff and the Planning Zoning Commission to review any time. And our own general plan has a guideline in it that suggests a review every 5 years to bring it in concert with existing laws. And, laws change, the economy changed, as Vice Chairman Meddy, Zarmi pointed out, the laws change and the economy. And so what we would suggest, our department would suggest that we review the general plan in 2015 and bring it back to the board. And now that will be a major amendment to the general plan if we decide to do that. So we need to start it early, because according to the statute, we would have to start and finish in the same calendar year. So what I propose that we start with the process right there in January. In fact, what I would propose that we start end of 2014 and then gather input and then go to the commission and the board at their first meeting. So make sure we give enough time and then we finish it well at the end of the year. The general plan has several components that, of course, we address. It contains policies, goals, and implementation measures. And then it has major components such as like natural resources, groundwater, it's going to be a major issue, land use, housing, economic development, of course, public infrastructure, public facilities, and each one of those could be time-consuming. What I would propose that since the statutes make the commission responsible for the general plan, to leave it with the commission, and what I would propose a procedure whereby the commission is in charge. We started, I mentioned a little bit earlier, we started with the review of our zoning ordinance, which is a simple task compared to the general plan. And what I asked the chairman of the Planning Zoning Commission to appoint 4 members that, doesn't constitute a quorum, but so they can discuss and set up a committee, a working committee with staff, and then invite the public to, and then identify, instead of rewriting the general plan, identify all those points, gather information from the supervisors, of course, and then commissioners and from the public that need to be looked at, and focus on those items. To give you an idea, and back in 2005, when the general plan was reviewed, and it was before my time with the department, I heard that it was like $500,000 for a consultant or something like that. 1995. No, 1995, I'm sorry. So by no means I would suggest something like that. What I would propose, and it's just a recommendation, of course, I want to put it on the table, that we work with the commission and staff and fix the areas that need to be fixed, and so get input from the board members and the commissioners and attack those areas. And then the committee would bring it back to the Planning Zoning Commission as frequently as necessary to the regular meetings. And then that would take care of all the public hearings too, but of course the public could participate in the working committee too. And then, gather the public input. We would start advertising, campaigning on our webpage and everything, so make sure everybody has a say-so. And then when we're getting close, then we would bring it back to the board. It's a pretty time-consuming process, because we have to get, before we bring it to the board, we have to get actually comments from all neighboring counties and all jurisdictions, that Indian tribes and everybody, and cities on it. So that would be my suggestion. And we can certainly discuss it more. It would happen in 2015, with starting with, again, with gathering ideas in 2014. And that's what I would like to put on the table as a recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Will you then be presenting that to the board then for an action item?
I'd be glad to do that, sir. If the board wishes to do that, I'd be glad to.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I just thought, it occurred to me, I think they're going to say, yeah, we're we're behind this, but I thought we should double check because I see all the people out there who are going to have to do all the work, and Chairman Flouchet up here. We might want to check with them since we're in an informal setting before we say, fix it, make it better.
That's an excellent idea.
Well,
Chairman Fouché.
I think we beat this around quite a bit at our own commission meetings and conversations with the director, and I believe we're up for the task. So,
Chairman, if I may, I'm sorry.
Mr. Hendricks?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask, I think one of the most important components is the Planning and Zoning Commission is going to recommend a public participation plan so that we're sure that we have sufficient participation. I was hoping Nick could expand on that a little bit, and that approval process, if you would.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much. Like anything that involves changing our regulations, public participation is the right thing to do, and that we put together very carefully discussions with the Commission, and then we go through the process of presenting to the Commission and then bring it to the board, and that would give an opportunity to change anything in the public participation. Going back to, we had some discussions already with the chairman of the Commission and the vice chair about the general plan. And it's a major task, but I think we are so lucky, and I just want to thank them. You know, I think we have the best commission that I ever known. I worked in many jurisdictions on the other side of the fence, but this is the best expert commission we ever had, and they're willing to take on the task. And of course, our staff will be 100% behind it. It will be a big task. It will be a big task, but on the again, we can start discussing the public participation plan, but probably the right thing would be just to bring it before at that time, because things can change until then too, until 2014.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Chairman Flouchet, do you have any comments of today's activities?
well, first of all, I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for agreeing to meet with us today and giving us the opportunity to get a little bit of your thoughts on the way we've been doing things, and maybe some direction on things that you would like to see done. I don't thank staff enough. They do such a wonderful job, and the commission, I mean, they come prepared to the meetings, and I'm just grateful that we have a great group of people to work with. And thank you again. And
thank you,
of course,
Chairman.
Bob Taylor and Mike Hendricks, they're both all great. So.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank all our commission members for joining us today. Oftentimes, we probably don't tell you folks how much we appreciate you, but I can tell you from the bottom of my heart, the fellows that represent my district, I really have a great deal of respect for, and the entire board. So I'd like to look forward to possibly doing this again next year, and I think it might be a good idea having this meeting to kind of see how it kind of went, but we can kind of formulate in our mind a few things that we can bring forth next year that might be helpful to the whole process. And also, I'd like to invite the economic development folks to be a part of that, and whatever recommendations they see or experience during this next year. And sometimes that experience will shed some light on some things that we can improve and change. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for their attendance today, and thank you so much.
Good seeing you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.